Welcome to Date Night. I'm Andrea.
And I'm David, and we're going to talk about a very special date night celebrating Andrea's birthday and the anniversary of two very close friends of ours.
This double date had double the reasons to do a really fun review of this restaurant where we had this very extravagant celebration.
I wanted to find something very special, something different, someplace new that we haven't been to. I did some checking around to find out that there was a new restaurant that opened about a year ago.
Early last fall.
Called
Lincoln.
At Lincoln Center, which is on the
west
side
side of New York City.
And what was really interesting about it was the chef of this restaurant. His name is Chef Benno.
He was the chef de cuisine for Thomas Keller at Per Se, which is one of the most spectacular restaurants, not just in New York City, but in the country. So from 2004 until he left to open this restaurant, he was running the show there while Thomas Keller went back and forth between the French Laundry and some of his other restaurants. And Chef Benno also cooked at Danielle and at Kraft, Tom Colicchio's restaurant. So he has amazing training, and this is the first time that he is the star of the show.
So I thought it'd be fun to try something new and see what he was capable of doing. So I asked if we could do a very special tasting where the chef could show off what he does and just let them do a 8, 9, 10 course meal and with wine pairing and just go overboard. And that's what he agreed to do for us.
It was a surprise to me as to what we were going to be having. I knew where we were going, but I didn't know the details of it. Dave handled everything, and it was the best surprise. It just, first beginning with the company, was just, they are some of our dearest and most darling friends.
Well, can I say something about that?
Yeah.
First of all, there's only two couples, and you both, if you watch this, know who you are, that I would ever even invite to an evening like this.
You have to be able to put away 9 courses and wine. It's not easy to keep up with, and really appreciate the nuances of every single dish and every ingredient. So it's not for everybody, but this foursome, this was a good foursome to do this with.
This was great. So they agreed to do it, and actually Chef Benno had emailed me back and forth a little bit, and I let him just go. So when we got there, I didn't know what the menu was going to look like whatsoever, and I was pleased to see.
Well, the restaurant, just from a aesthetic standpoint, it's beautiful. It's all glass. It's between 65th Street and the plaza at Lincoln Center. So you go up the stairs to the dining room, and the dining room is on plaza level, and it overlooks the Paul Milstein pool in the middle of all the Lincoln Center buildings. So if you get a table right there at the window, which we did, it's just a beautiful place to dine and see people who are all happy. That was one of my comments, was everyone walking around inside the plaza is happy because they've either come from a performance, are going to a performance, or are really appreciating the beauty of that courtyard, that little plaza there.
Right, and then if you turn to the other side, it's the open kitchen, which I love to see, just everything going on, the chefs doing their thing, and just the beauty of it. That's almost like a symphony in itself, to watch how each of them come together and then create this spectacular dish. And then we got the menu, and they had a beautiful menu where it said happy birthday to you and happy anniversary to them,
right?
Which was nice.
And they poured us champagne as we sat down, which was what's more welcoming than walking into a restaurant, sitting down in this beautiful space, and then toasting with glasses of champagne. It was beautiful.
It was nice. And we had a young sommelier
who was wonderful for the evening, introducing the wines to us as they were being paired, and the pairings themselves were inspired. They were really spot on, which is hard to do, certainly with so many courses. To have each and every course was just perfectly paired, and all of us agreed.
So what did we start off with?
We started off with very thin sliced king salmon with blood orange and fennel and tarragon, and it was a very light way to start out. It was just very clean and fresh.
Yeah, that was the right word, clean.
Yeah, it wasn't the most exciting dish, and I know that our other two diners thought, oh, where are we going from here? If this is where we're starting, is it going to get better than this?
And when the next course came, the next course I thought was just terrific. So that was that big white asparagus that had
Who doesn't love white asparagus?
And in the second, and with the asparagus, they had something called lardo, which most people wouldn't know what lardo
Lardo
is.
is, this was sliced paper thin, it's translucent, and it's essentially cured back fat that adds a little bit of unctuousness and a salty flavor to, and it was wrapped around the asparagus. You could just barely see it because the white asparagus took it so beautifully, but you could feel it a little bit in your mouth, so it was a little bit of a fatty mouthfeel and just a delicious, just a rich flavor that added to the asparagus.
A duck egg with it. Really just pulled it all together.
Duck egg. Rocked.
Yeah, and then they had a Sauvignon Blanc, but don't keep in mind that all the wines are obviously Italian. So when I say Sauvignon Blanc, you typically think of a Californian, but it was really, really good. So it picked up. It was very, very nice, but we still wasn't sure. We weren't sure. But then the third course came, which literally you just wanted to jump into, and when you finished it, you just wanted to have, give me another 8, 6, 10 bowls. I want to go back specifically to have a huge dish.
And I don't think it's on the menu regularly because this was custom made for us that night, of course, with the ingredients that he had gotten in that day, which is how he typically cooks. But this was spaghetti. The most perfectly cooked spaghetti. One of our dining partners and I both commented how it was so perfectly al dente with peaky toe crab.
Maine sea urchin.
Have you ever had sea urchin? It's orange. Maybe you've had it at the sushi bar. It looks gross, and you would, it's one of those things that people don't like to try. If you ever have a chance, close your eyes if it freaks you out to look at, if the texture is a little too much for you, but taste it. Good, fresh sea urchin, and that's the key, is one of the most exquisite delights that you can put in your mouth from the sea. It's rich, it's smooth, it's silky, it's sweet, it's briny, all at the same time. Then it had a sauce,
Yeah, tomato
base, a pomerello sauce with it.
But the tomato just gave it that earthiness, and then the sea urchin with the piquito crab just brought it all together. And literally, I have to tell you, I've had a lot of pasta dishes. This had to be the most delicious pasta course I've ever had. Even the rabbit we had in Italy one year, way back when, this just trumped everything. It was so phenomenal. And then, very nice pairing also on the wine. It was a Pinot Grigio, which was good. So as far as I was concerned, they could just keep bringing me that same course, and I would have been happy for the rest of the night.
You did. You kept asking for it. You said, "Could you bring me this for dessert?" And
I would have had that for dessert.
You would have eaten the whole thing. I happen to love the next course.
So did I, yes.
The next course was earthy, and it was mushrooms and sweetbreads.
I love sweetbreads too, though. Yeah.
And hazelnuts in brown butter.
Yeah, your girlfriend loved it. She did.
So I finished the sweetbreads. I don't even know if I finished the sweetbreads because it was getting rich and I was starting to get full at that point. But the earthiness of the mushrooms was delicious. And I remember sitting there. Everyone else had finished their plates, and they were waiting for me to catch up. And I remember just sitting, eating the brown butter off a spoon. If you fed me butter, I would just eat butter. But
I love brown butter.
Oh my God.
But it was good.
But
the other dish.
See, I like this better. You like the sea, I like the earth. But
yeah.
The wine with this.
That was the best. That was unbelievable. What was it?
It was Nebbiolo di Alba, Serreta, 2008, Piemonte. So it was a white.
It was lush.
A lush, very. Also had earthy notes that really complemented the mushrooms and the sweetbread, and that was the one that everyone just wanted to keep drinking.
Yep.
And the sommelier prefaced it by saying, "This is kind of an odd pairing." It was
it's perfect.
Spot on.
The wine
it was
just
brilliant.
fabulous.
Yeah.
We went to
Went back to the sea next and had branzino, which is
great.
I think my favorite fish.
Yeah.
I happen to love branzino almost anyway. It's a white, flaky, thin fish. It's not a steaky fish, and this was simply prepared.
It was lovely with the agave. It was lovely. It wasn't like the last two dishes, which were wow though.
It had almonds, and it also had wax beans on the plate. I don't like the look of wax beans, and maybe the name is off-putting to me as well. And I probably also have the memory of my mother taking wax beans out of cans. That's how we ate in the 70s. You didn't have Whole Foods Market, and
Yeah.
you ate, and especially in the winter, you were eating cans of LeSueur peas and things like that.
Yeah.
But I remember wax beans out of cans, and I think from
I love
childhood, that was not
Yeah.
something that I liked. So I very, very hesitatingly tasted one, and it was scrumptious. It was sweet. It didn't have a waxy feel to it, which is what I always associate with wax beans. And so for me, that was just a really nice highlight and something that I look forward to
But it
trying.
wasn't a memorable dish to me.
Okay.
I mean, if later on we'll come back to why that dish what became memorable, because one of our friends, which we'll call Mr. M, wasn't feeling so good, and he's been not feeling well, and at that point took a big antibiotic at that point in the meal. So
And
we'll
catch
talk
up.
about that later, right?
It comes into play a little later.
But just remember
in
this.
the evening. But the next dish
This
again
was really good.
was
Enjoyed this.
fantastic. We were
Yeah.
back on land, and this was a black Angus ribeye, small with ramps.
And morels.
And ramps and more. See, I really
So,
love the earthiness
Yeah.
of those kinds of dishes. You really love seafood, and I just love the flavors. The fresh ramps in
Yeah.
the spring, they are amazing. The ribeye was possibly, and I said this to you that night, some of the best steak I've had in a restaurant.
Do you
And
think it was sous vide?
that it might have been cooked sous vide. The steak was just meltingly tender and very flavorful and delicious.
Yeah. My biggest problem with this course was the wine. And your girlfriend and I both agreed it smelled beautifully. It was like if you just ate the meat and smelled that wine, it was just perfect.
It was
but
a
then when you
Tuscan.
tasted it,
Yeah, it didn't
it
taste
just
as great. It
didn't
was a
hold up.
Sangiovese 2005 Flaccianello della Pieve Fondotti,
Yeah.
if you know what that is. And it didn't meet up with the expectation based on
the smell. The smell, you thought you were going to get something more bold and more luscious. So, but it was good. It was fun.
That was great. The next course was a cheese course. And by that point, I was starting to get a little full. Did Italian cheeses, Piacentino, Capretto Sardo, and Gorgonzola Dolce, which is one of my
I like that.
favorite
That was
cheeses. I
different,
love
yeah.
Gorgonzola Dolce, with some nice condiments and semolina raisin bread.
The first dessert I really liked.
It was a lemon sorbet
Yeah, they gave a lemon sorbet and then they had the
with
lemon pound cake, which was nice. I thought it was just very light and nice.
I took maybe 2 bites of that just to cleanse as the lady on one of the wedding shows says, cleanse my platelet,
Yeah.
cleanse my palate.
They were supposed to just bring some warm chocolate mousse and some blackberries and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden they started bringing over another dessert and another dessert and another dessert. So they really complimented it.
And I don't even remember what they were because by that point I couldn't eat them. And I remember eating the blackberries off the plate. There was chocolate, warm chocolate mousse, a spiced chocolate gelato, an almond crema, all this sort of rich stuff on the plate. I think I took 1 bite of the chocolate mousse because how could I not? It was chocolate and it was the end of a meal. But I remember saying the only thing I can eat is blackberries because I am so full at this point.
Yeah. And they had a nice wine. I forgot about it. It wasn't memorable.
No,
but
it was a nice Tuscan dessert wine.
Yeah, I'll go back for dessert because I tasted a little bit. I was so full I couldn't enjoy it. So I'll go back for my pasta dish, triple bowl, and the dessert.
Maybe not have 7 courses
Right.
before dessert.
But at that point in the meal, I was really full, and then I was by myself because my pal took off. He was nowhere to be found. He was outside on
So the
terrace.
antibiotic got to one of our dining companions,
Mr. M.
and he was not feeling well. So he excused himself, and he missed much of dessert.
That pot in particular.
And I'm sorry to say, our friend had a return meal, let's say. A few minutes later, he caught up with us. He was feeling much better at that point, and he won't be taking that antibiotic again, we hope, right?
And the New York street cleaners weren't probably happy that
He
night or
kept them-
morning, right? Kept them busy.
He kept them busy.
When you rate the meal itself, it was really up there. I think it's on par with a lot of the higher-end restaurants that we've been to in the city.
I would put it on par with 11 Madison Park.
Yeah, and which is the best one in
And
the city.
I read early reviews of this restaurant that weren't stellar. which I think is one of those catch-22s, because you're supposed to be ready for a review the first day you open your doors. But in reality, how can that happen? The service
was great.
was excellent.
Service was
I
great.
thought the place itself was
It
stunning.
was different. It was almost 60s to me.
The
type of
chairs
atmosphere.
had a 60s feel to it, and the tables, and it felt nice.
If you say it was a 5-star, it's the first 5-star restaurant I've ever been to where we've taken someone and then they've left their meal on the sidewalk/street. So we'll take him back again.
It was a great way to celebrate two very nice occasions. We love to celebrate with our friends. We love to do paired tasting meals, which is why we're on a diet this month. And so if you ever have a special occasion and have the opportunity to go try Lincoln. It's a very memorable evening. And thank you for celebrating my birthday in such a nice way and surprising me.
And the birthday
That was
cake we
nice.
picked up on the way home was nice too. It was fun.
Yes.
Yeah. So
So-
it was great. And I'd like to invite our friends back on me because I feel so bad that the meal was wasted on Mr. M. So we split this meal, but next time it's on me to make it up.
So thanks for joining us for this webisode of Date Night. We'll catch you again after our next date.